Hola a todos, Caro here, digital organizer with Mijente, continuing our convos with folks as we await returns tonight. We've spoken with compas in Georgia, Argentina, Florida, and we just had a convo with Maida, our political strategist who joined us from Phoenix, where we're having our last stop of the El Chisme tour tonight. Right now, we're speaking with Jairo Cortez, executive director at Chispa in OC. Chispa is a political organizing home for young Latinas, and they engage with excluded peoples to uproot systems of oppression in Orange County. Heido, I'll toss it to you, and then we can start breaking down CA 45.
Okay. So do I share about Chispa
Yeah,
or
sure. Just
yeah?
introduce yourself, quick few words about Chispa, and then we can break down CA 45.
Okay, cool. So thanks for having me. As Caro shared, my name's Jairo Cortez. I'm the founder and executive director at Chispa. We're an organization based out of Orange County, California, doing work, to build political power for young Latinos here in the county. We've been around since 2017, taking on policy campaigns around police accountability, economic justice, and also doing a lot of work to elect, good candidates to office at the local level. Having had like a lot of wins in the city of Santa Ana, in particularly.
Solid. So thanks for mentioning that. You touched a little bit on candidates at the local level, so school board, city council, but there's a really important congressional race in Orange County between Michelle Steele and Derek Tran, and that's been really closely watched. Can you explain why that race is so important, especially for the Latina community in Orange County? Like, how has Chispa been organizing and engaging in that race?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, it's the most expensive house race in the country right now. It's like over, like $20 million that have been spent on that house race alone. Elon Musk threw in like $1 million, up in the last month. And so, we are supporting Democrat Derek Tran against the incumbent Michelle Steele, who, has been like a staple of Orange County politics for, like years, and who right now represents this congressional district, kind of like towards like West Orange County. And, I think like this race is like really pivotal because we know how tight the House margins are. And, like it's an opportunity for Democrats to win a majority in the House of Representatives. Now, the district, we're in this race, it is heavily, like Vietnamese district. And, like Derek Tran is a candidate. He's the son of like Vietnamese refugees. He's been doing like really well in the race, but we recognize that, like in a race where, we're probably not gonna know the results for weeks, and it's just gonna, come down like to a few votes, a few hundred votes. We know that Latino voters are gonna make the difference, and so you have cities like Buena Park, like Fullerton, right, parts of Anaheim, where there is a heavy concentration of Latino voters. And for us, when we decided to work on this race, it was kind of like out of a realization and an assumption that if anybody is gonna talk to Latino voters, it had to be us, and it had to be us, because we know our community, we know what's at stake, and so we kind of like made that decision in August, and we launched a program, to like knock on doors, make phone calls, text, mail, digital, just to reach Latino voters and, like get them to come out and vote.
Solid. And outside of endorsements for candidates, I see that Chispa has also endorsed certain positions on propositions. So let's just shift to that a little bit because there are a lot of key props on the ballot this year, like Prop 33, right? So that's focused on protecting families from skyrocketing rents and displacement. So what would Prop 33 passing mean for the organizing wins that Chispa has been able to support and secure locally?
Yeah, so I mean, California is known for its propositions. We have like 10 on the ballot this year. And so Prop 33 in particular, it's very technical because it doesn't establish rent control in the state. What it does is it essentially expands the powers that cities in California have to establish rent control. And so right now, under current state law, a city like Santana, which has its own rent control policy on the books, can establish rent control, but it can only apply rent control to apartment buildings built before 1995. So any new development since then, like none of those buildings can be rent controlled, even if a city does pass like that kind of policy. And so what Prop 33 does is it gives cities more flexibility, to expand like the scope of their rent control policies. And like what that means for local organizing, right? Like for cities that already have rent control, uh, it would be an opportunity to push, for greater protections. And for cities that don't, it would be an opportunity that if there is an organizing push for rent control, that it's like the strongest like possible, right? Like without all those restraints that exist at the moment.
Solid. Thank you. Thank you. So, another key proposition on the ballot is Prop 36, which a lot of folks have talked about, organized around, and that addresses criminal justice reform. So, a no vote on that prop would ensure that we don't backslide into regressive, like antiquated, tough on crime policies that further that cycle of incarceration. So, can you explain what that prop is a little bit about, maybe some of Chispa's work there, and why it's so important for communities of color, including Latina communities in OC, and how just that ties into Chispa's work?
Yeah. I mean, we know how the war on drugs affected Latino communities, right? For decades. We know what the war on drugs did for, like the skyrocketing of mass incarceration, like since the 90s, which started coming down, when Prop 47 was passed in 2014. And so what Prop 36 seeks to do is essentially repeal the justice reforms of the 2010s, right? And bring us back to this era of like tough on crime, of like, increasing like incarceration rates, which our community is gonna feel the closest. And I think it also I think like for us, there's also like national implications of like what does it mean if essentially California like ends, right, like this project of like justice reform. um and I think like at the end of the day, right, like this proposition, right, it was bankrolled by Walmart. um it was bankrolled by the retail industry, by police associations, and really under a false guise, right, like of safety, and really taking advantage of like this like false like crime narrative, right? Like we know that crime rates are coming down and are still at historical lows, but there was a very strong and concerted like media strategy on their part to kind of like hype um like um the most like extreme cases and examples, right? And it took its toll. And so I think like Prop 36 is like dangerous. It's dangerous for our communities, because it really brings us back to this era of like tough on crime that didn't work, of like war on drugs that didn't work, and of mass incarceration that only caused harm in our communities.
Solid. Thank you for sharing. Any final words that you'd like to share about Chispa's work? And if you'd like, you can also plug in where our viewers can support your work on social media.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to learn more, you can check us out at chispaoc.org or on Instagram, where we're most active. You can just look up chispaoc. We are not the dating app. We're here first. Um, and I think like for us, right, like this is a pretty big year. Like we have candidates running like for office from like the school board all the way to like Congress, which it's like the first year where we're running kind of like an election program at that scale. And I think like most of all, right, like we don't know what's gonna happen tonight. I would like to believe in like optimism as we await election results. But whatever happens, right, like we have to be ready to organize. Like we have to be ready to, whether it's like to organize to defend our communities or to organize to push for greater progress, right? Like we just need to be ready and willing to organize.
Yeah, and I think that that's a theme that's come up a lot today, this idea of we're casting our votes today. A few of us put in our ballots beforehand, but for those of us who are casting our votes today, it's about everything that came before and about all the organizing that's going to happen after. So, gracias, Jairo, for joining us. If you're tuning in, thank you for joining us as well. We're going to continue having conversations as we wait for these returns to come in. And yeah, at the top of every hour, we'll be having somebody new and featuring them in these conversations. So thank you so much for joining us. And Haido, again, thank you for joining us as well.
Yeah, no, thank you.